Good morning, everybody. It is 9 a.m. time for Lisa's Changing Perceptions. Lisa's Changing Perceptions, of course, is brought to you by the gracious support of the Bremer Team Keller Williams Success Realty Group. BremerTeam.com, 847-456-6334. We bring families home. And today with Lisa, we have a remarkably wonderful special guest, Denise Maple of Live Life Spiritual Direction. Ladies, how are you this morning?
I am well, thank you.
Awesome.
Great. Thanks,
Why don't you go ahead and do your wonderful housekeeping and introduce your amazing guest, and we'll have a good time.
I am Lisa with Lisa's Changing Perceptions. I'm a self-empowerment coach, hypnotherapist, and NLP practitioner. You can reach me at 262-573-7055 by text or phone, or you can contact me at lisaschangingperceptions@gmail.com, lisaschangingperceptions.com, or of course through 216thenet.com, and people get me any messages that you have. Feel free to always ask any questions. Today I'm not going to get into my thing. I have Denise Maple here with me. She is not only beautiful, intelligent, she is smart and has a heart of gold, and she is starting a new venture. And as soon as I heard she was taking the risk and the jump, I was like, all right, you did it. So let's take step number 2. So she's here with us today. And Denise, the floor is yours. I will chat with you, introduce yourself and what your new venture is.
Thank you, Lisa. So Live Life Spiritual Direction. I have been a spiritual counselor since 2018, although studying for several years before that. I would say my study was probably 5 years in total. And I am also a level 2 Reiki practitioner. And my vision for Live Life Spiritual Direction is, that every person is living the song of their soul. So what has really helped me in my life and having it live a more full life and truly living life is really understanding what my roadblocks are and understanding, what are those limiting beliefs, those false beliefs about myself in the world, and then overcoming them through Reiki, through prayer, through spiritual practice, through contemplation, through some sessions with Lisa, who's an amazing counselor. And I know, Lisa, you've talked about it on the show, how, the idea of law of attraction, I think, is much deeper than, say, we had in The Secret. And so when we have these false beliefs about ourselves, maybe not good enough, or something about the world, like the world is a terrible place, that starts to play out in our lives. So if we can really unearth those false beliefs, look at them and help dissipate them and put in place, the true beliefs about ourselves, that we are part of God, that we are wonderful human beings, and move from there, we can move with a lot less fear.
And even that if we haven't been at some point, because sometimes some of us have not always been, then we can look at that and say, you know what, but I can see why I did that. And now I can see why I need to change it and change it. And people always have hope. It's not, you're right. I agree. Manifesting is not, and we were going to do a show on manifesting. Kent and I were talking about it. It's not just you envision it while you sit in your recliner and then Ed McMahon shows up at the door and hands you your dream come true.
Exactly.
It's actual work and changing the way you see things. And were you surprised when you started on this, how many things you had buried that you just were clueless?
Yeah. And things that I thought I had worked through, and then they pop up again.
Right.
I'm like, oh, I think there's still more work to do here.
I haven't quite completed this one. Yeah. And it's stuff from a long time ago, too, because I love it when people say to me, oh, well, that happened a long time ago. Well, I'm happy for you, but it's still bothering you, so it's still there.
Yeah, and that's how our belief systems gets formed, by our experience, by television, by media, by our environment, our experiences.
And when your venture right now is, and then what is your goal?
So Live Life Spiritual Direction right now is mostly online. I do hour to hour and a half sessions for spiritual counseling. Right now doing all of them by Zoom, although I am in Northern Illinois, soon to be moving to Southern Wisconsin. So I am open to doing in-person sessions locally. But I found it really doesn't matter that much for what I do. I mean, energy is energy. So it doesn't matter if you're in the same room across the other side of the world. So I'll have a website by next month, livelifespiritual.com. And I'm currently accepting clients through the Ajata Casa social media app, which is, you can get it on Google Play, Apple, that kind of thing. And that's
I've never even heard about that. What is it?
So Ajata Kasha is a social app started by Lisa Gunshore. She's I think several generations psychic medium channeler, and she got tired of kind of the nonsense on Facebook, just a lot of bad energy, but also kind of the unseemly practices of Facebook. And she said, I'm going to make something that's about love and light. We can talk about what we want. We have certain venues if we want to talk about different things, and from a standpoint of nonviolence communication. And it's really a lovely app. It's much more enjoyable, seeing somebody's inspirational post than someone being angry about something.
Really? You see a lot of angry social media, do you, Denise?
I'm not on as much as I used to be.
I have really cut mine down too. Mm-hmm. It's basically send out an ad, check with my family, and then move on. It really has gotten. So you're right.
Agreed. And I want to keep up with everybody, but it's got to be in small doses for me.
Yeah, because it's really overwhelming. And that's when you're talking about energy, that's a true thing. People don't realize that, for me, I've tried to have my coffee and stuff first even now. But when the first thing you do when your eyes open, people tend to grab that phone and start scrolling the social media because, overnight something could have happened that their world is going to end if they don't know about it. Yeah. And that's another kind of, like I said, joke about McDonald's society mentality of, oh my God, I have to be in contact the whole time. But you don't understand that your brain's just waking up. It's processing the day. It's filtering out your view of the day. It's, it's getting ready to completely vile. Mm-hmm. So you're right. There needs to be a place to go, and people have to take self-accountability for the fact that what you put in your brain and what you choose. There is no law. I know this might shock people. There's no law that you have to look at Facebook when you wake up in the morning. Right. It has not become a law that you have to do it. So you're choosing to wake up and say, okay, the first thing I'm going to see today is negative, vile, ick.
Yeah.
First thing I'm going to see today is my family fighting or my friends fighting or over topics that I did a big post one day, and I don't tend to do drama on my Facebook page, but I got so fed up with it one day, and I did a long post about I have yet to see somebody on Facebook who was attacked for their belief say, oh my God, I totally see it different now. Thank you for changing my view. I have yet to see that at all. So stop it. Just stop it. You're not going to change anybody's view. You're just showing your own colors.
Yeah. I mean, you can learn from each other. People have different perspectives by a civil dialogue, and you can think, and I found myself kind of changing my views over time by having that, but it's so unproductive to get the anger.
Well, and it's kind of common sense, because if somebody comes up to approach you about something and they're coming up and they're yelling at you, what's the first thing you do? Guard up, ears plugged, on defense. You're not hearing anything. But if somebody comes up and says, Denise, have you ever thought about this? When you said this, it bothered me because this is how I see it. Why do you see it the way you see it? What are you going to do? You're going to engage and go, really? That's interesting. And people don't know how to communicate.
Yeah.
And I want you to describe what you view spiritual counseling as too, because that's a different perspective from everybody.
Yeah.
So I want you to explain to them what your view of spiritual counseling is. What do you see yourself as offering out that's different than something they might get somewhere else? Because many people are doing different types of spiritual things, and everybody has, even with the mediumship thing, when people talk to me about mediumship and then, I saw things. We can all do this, but everybody does it a little bit different. It's what's your filter, what's your niche, where's your thing, to do. I know many people who do what I do, but they don't do it like I do it, and I don't do it like they do it. So explain to people what your heartfelt part of spiritual counseling is, what brought you to it. If you choose to share, what made you delve into it? Because usually we don't start this venture unless something sucks. That's and we have to find another way. What brought you here? What made you choose the direction you went with it? And what you want to offer out to everybody else and why, so that they understand who you are versus, the other people they might read are saying, or the same title.
Yeah. Okay. So start with kind of how I got into it and why. So I was part of a spiritual center in Chicago that doesn't exist anymore. And I was taking classes, and it was really from a philosophy, Ernest Holmes' philosophy of science of mind, which essentially is the idea of law of attraction. It is done to you as you believe. Like, I would say the three biggest tenets of that are: it is done to you as you believe, faith, life after death, eternal life, and oneness. We are all one. Love your brother and sister as yourself. And it really resonated with me because I walked into a service and I was like, oh, I didn't know other people believe the same thing I do. It's kind of like the line that runs through all the major religions that's the same, without all the other stuff. And
without all the other rules.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I had an Akashic Records reader tell me, you're an A student getting a B in life. I recommend you check out some of these spiritual centers. And
really,
and going to that one, it most recently was called Bodhi Spiritual Center. I feel like it changed my outlook on life. And I started taking the classes, and I was taking a class called Practical Mysticism. I did a paper on Mary Magdalene, and it was just a great class. And during the class, I had an experience where it just happened organically that I helped a friend a grieving process through losing his mother. And we did a clearing of his home where it happened. And it was just felt really deep. And I was so grateful that I could help move him along his grief process. And I walked away and I was like, oh, I think I never thought I'd go into the practitioner training there. And I was like, oh, this is it.
This is my thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I started doing the training, and a lot of things happen. It's funny when you answer the call like that in this setting. It seemed like all of us went through a lot of stuff. I lost my dad. In fact, 3 of us lost our dad during the training. Other thing, we had someone who had a very big health scare. And part of that, I think, is what we go through can help be empathetic with our clients.
Absolutely.
So, grief is one thing that I'm much more related to than I ever have been. So
that's how we find our niche, because I've described on the show, you can describe yours on the show. When people say, how do I know what mine is? Well, first off, part of the problem is if you expect to know what it is before you try it, mm-hmm. you're not going to find it. Mm-hmm. And it's a feeling that you'll know when you get it. Like, mm-hmm. I can have my whole world, because I tell everybody my personal life is like a Jerry Springer segment. But when I walk into my office, that all just goes away. I'm right here. And there's a different energy. Mm-hmm. There's I know I'm right where I'm supposed to be kind of feeling. And until you feel it, you almost can't understand what that feeling is. And you just know this is what I'm supposed to do. It's even the same. I told Pete there was a few months when things were really getting hairy, and this was what I looked forward to. Sitting here, I went, you know what? Because when I'm on the radio, everything else goes away, and it's just a feeling where you mm-hmm. go, there's no effort here. There's no stride here. I don't have to fight for it. It just is who I am. Yeah. And you didn't find it until you said, I need to stop outside my box. Yeah. And that's the thing, is that there only needs to be enough discomfort or confusion or whatever it is in your life to say, even if you're not miserable. I mean, some people wait till they're miserable. That was me. I waited until I was just like, seriously, no, there's got to be something bigger. But some people, you don't even have to be miserable. You just have to say, you know what, I feel like I'm missing something, and then go look for it, Yeah. And you know what, you might find 10 things that aren't it before you find your one thing that is. Yeah. The only thing I can guarantee you is if you don't look, you're never going to. Right. And, take a risk. And that's why when you came in, I said, I wanted to have her on the air as soon as I knew she took the risk, because whether you discuss it or not is up to you, but you took a risk and you sacrificed to come and say, I'm ready. I'm ready to do this. And you're taking a life risk that many people wouldn't take. And you're giving up some comforts that many people would probably say, oh, I couldn't possibly do that. Mm-hmm. Well, you don't have to. Yeah. But as soon as I heard, oh, she actually really did it. She's here. There's no more talking about it. I was like, all right, come on, let's go. Yeah. Let's make it happen. Yeah. And to speak what you're talking about. Yeah. I mean, I
basically went half-time with my job and cut my salary in half, because this is so important to me.
And she had a very good, secure job. It wasn't a job that many people would say, yeah, I think I'll give this up.
Yeah.
It's kind of a job, you can decide whether you
Yeah.
want to tell them or not, but it's kind of a job that most people get and they're so excited and now they found their career.
Yeah.
And so when you actually did what you did and said, no, I'm really going to do it, this is the time for it, I went, all right, let's back her every way we can, because
Thank
most
you.
people would not do it.
Thank you. Yeah, and the funny thing about what I do for now part-time is I teach finance at a large university. And it's just funny because I'm in the finance world, but I'm also in the spiritual world. And it doesn't seem that mixes very often, but I'm surprised at when I tell people in that, area, what I do with Live Life Spiritual Direction, like half of them will be like, really? Tell me more,
Absolutely. I find that too, because I used to be a little bit shyer than I am now about it. I know that's hard to believe, but it's true. And now I'm like, whatever. You either like what I do, believe what I do, or you don't. I couldn't care less either way.
Yeah.
I'll support you. You want to come talk? I'll talk. You want to come bicker? You better have your game on, because I can bicker back. I don't worry about it anymore. But surprisingly, the people that come, and it triggers me that, oh, you're going to be one of those people who's going to challenge me. I'm finding less and less that that's the case. And more people are like, I've always wondered about that. And it's becoming a more open conversation, kind of thing. Yes, sir. When Pete does this, there's a question.
Okay, great.
Okay, actually, Shayna.
Hi, Shayna. She's a regular
of the show here, asks, did you get some financial guidance that helped you take that leap?
Yeah, Sheena, that's a good question. I don't know that I got financial guidance. Actually, that's not true. My mom is here, and she and I both work with the same financial advisor, and I did talk to him about it, but I'm also a finance professional, so I felt pretty comfortable with where I was at financially. And while this is a risk for me to give up that much income, it's not a complete, it's kind of like a calculated risk.
Because she's financially mature, unlike some of us in the room. She is financially mature. I am not. But in any case, to give you credit still, you would have been even more comfortable down the road because of what you were doing full time, and it was very secure. So in either way, it's a risk. I guess it's a valued risk based on somebody who has 10 times as much as you wouldn't look at it as such a, you know what I mean? So it's based on where you are. When you were comfortable and you worked hard to become what you became, it's not like you, oh my God, lucky indeed. You know what I mean? And now I'm a professor.
Here, let me correct that. Final. Not and this is my problem. I read that wrong. Shayna reiterated the word for me. Did you get some final guidance that helped you take the leap?
Yeah.
My brain must be all about the $3 we were talking about earlier this morning in the green room.
I was explaining how I have $8 to invest in my purse right now. If anybody's wanting to take that,
I have $3 and $3. But
Denise's mom was willing to take nice finances on for us.
Yeah,
and
she
help
was
us out. And I had $8.
She was going to invest in an egg McMuffin, as I recall, which I thought was sound advice, especially this early in the morning. So final. I'm sorry.
So
final.
She's looking for your spiritual guidance.
Yeah. Which I think is probably the more important guidance, or at least, definitely a big part of it. Yeah, I would say I had always planned to do more with my spiritual counseling, but it was last summer, and I think a lot of people had these epiphanies during the heart of the pandemic. And, my mom had some health issues that my sister and I was coming back and forth to help. And I really enjoyed being with family. I was reassessing everything. I knew that something needed to change. Even though I had gone from working at a bank to teaching, it still wasn't the work-life balance that I wanted. And it still didn't quite have what I wanted to feed my soul. So it was just one of those things, going back and forth, being with family, being back up here in the area. It was just like a knowing, oh, it's time for me to come back.
It's almost like
It's
the
time
missing
for
piece
me-
is kind of getting fed a little
Yeah.
bit, and you're like, now it doesn't feel so empty.
Yeah.
And that's how you start to figure out what you're missing in life.
Yeah. And the other piece of it is a big dream is I want, I'm going to rent now. I'm hoping to have that figured out by tomorrow. But, I want to live on a lake. And now's not a great time to buy right now.
Oh, yeah. Give it about
But-
18 months. That's my goal. And 18 months, my goal is I've looked the same thing, and I'm like, nope, I'm going to wait 18 months to 2 years because sadly the bubble's going to burst.
Yeah.
And it's going to be like back in 08. And all of a sudden we're going to be able to get something a lot different.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think you're right. But that this gets me one step closer to that dream. So I really am starting to see the full picture.
But eventually,
come together.
and maybe you're going to smack me. We're on the camera, just so there's witnesses.
Okay.
You wanted to have a whole retreat that people came to is
Yeah.
your long-term goal. So
Yeah.
tell them that, what that's about, because this is step one, but you have a long-term vision that we've talked about before.
Yeah. Well, maybe, is it okay if I take a step back, talk about what a spiritual counseling session would
This
be
is
like?
your show today. You can talk
And
about
then
whatever you want.
Move into that because it might make more sense.
That's fine.
So in a session, quickly, Reiki session is hands-on or distance energy. The energy goes where it's needed. Reiki is essentially the energy flow of life guided by spirit, and the energy goes wherever it's most needed. It balances chakras. It's, at the very least, people walk away feeling more calm. But it can also heal some of those false beliefs that we've talked about. In a spiritual counseling session, we'll start with what is it is on your mind today, and we'll dialogue and we'll talk about what are the things that are maybe trying to look for clues. What are those false beliefs? What are those actions in life that are holding the person back? And we might do some processing like inner child work, meditation.
That's my favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really effective.
Oh, yeah.
And I've done some effective work with you where I have really made some
Inner
shifts.
child work's amazing because it's almost like it's a chain and it's attached. So once you take care of once you release it from the pole, you know what I mean? Your chain that you're attached to, all these other links drop. It's amazing.
Yes.
Inner child works so much.
Yeah.
I was going to say so much fun. I'm not saying that working with your struggles is fun. I mean, I like the feeling that it brings when you see somebody go, wow.
Move out of maybe even out of a dark place.
Right.
And because I really believe we have the answers in ourselves. It's just helping unearth those answers that we have within ourselves. So after we kind of identify what's the issue, what's the place we want to be, we'll end with homework because it's the idea of pray and then move your feet, right? We'll pray about it and we'll know this truth for you. And then you take action toward your goal.
You mean you don't have a magic thumb you can put on their forehead and make it all better?
Not so far.
Yeah.
Not so far.
I tell people all the time, if I had that, I'd have the greatest car in home and there'd be people lined up out of my office forever. That's not how it works. You have to actually do the steps.
Yeah.
Pete's doing somebody has a question.
Okay.
Wait.
Kent Jones.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Can't be kind.
Kent he just asked, can it help heal a hernia?
Oh, he's talking about Reiki.
Yeah. I think actually, I would never say don't see your doctor, only do this, right? I believe in an integrative approach and looking at all sides of the issue, because there is a physical side, but there is a mental cause, I believe, for everything we experience in life. So
She's
know
singing
a lot
my
about
song.
this.
She's singing
I'd
my
have to
song.
look it up. But if a hernia, if you look at one of Louise Hay's books or some of the books that you have, there's probably a specific thing related to the hernia that you could look and say, oh, okay, does this let's say it's if it's your eyes, you don't like what you see in life,
right.
So
well, a hernia is created by lifting too much of something heavy too quickly.
So looking at where you,
what are you doing in life? And I know Kent personally, so he's going to go, damn her. When we take on something big, a big load real quickly, and we grab it and pull versus contemplating and lifting, planning, what happens is your body responds in a similar action. I'm sure there's other reasons for hernia, but that's the first thing that came to my mind. So if you took on another big project and you grabbed it quickly and ran versus taking out of excitement or whatever it might be. And you, instead of contemplating, planning, and doing it strategically, you may have taken on too much too quickly, and your body is trying to say, whoa, 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 slow down and stop and think about this. And here's where Kent gives me the finger from his house right now.
It's all right. You can't see it, so we don't care.
Doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Kent just took on a big thing in life right now. So, and I'm
Oh.
not going to discuss it on the air because that's his business,
Mhm.
but he'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And he's
Yeah.
probably at home like, why did I call in? Why did I say
Yeah.
anything?
and we get these false beliefs that we need to take on so much. Maybe we got the message growing up or just from TV and magazines, like this not good enough. Like a thing for me that I'm always unearthing is like my self-esteem, and realize like, oh, there's still stuff there that not good enough. And that's another theme that I'm often working on or have worked on a lot in the past. Like, how do I move from not good enough to the empowered human being that
Well,
we're
I'll
all
plant
meant to
one
be?
seed right here on the air and do my thing as you say that, because I've said it to clients before.
Kent does
What
say
is good
you
enough?
are all on my big move and quick reaction.
No, he knows. Yeah, he knows. What is good enough? And here's the reason I say that. You don't even have to answer it. It's a
Mhm.
seed planting, because if you sat down and wrote down what is good enough, the majority of people don't know. They realize all of a sudden, I don't even know what that is. So I'm chasing
Mhm.
something I don't even know what it is. And if I don't know what it is, I'll never reach it because I'll never be able to identify it. Because I do the same thing when a client comes in and says, I'll say, what is your goal here today? What brought you? Peace. I want peace. Okay, describe peace, because your peace and my peace aren't going to be the same thing. So what
Right.
is your peace? Well, I don't know, calmness. No, that's just another word for peace. So describe to me what that would be if it was accomplished. And that's when you help somebody realize, holy crap, I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, what is
Helping
good
them
enough?
craft
Right.
vision. Yeah.
Right. When am I good enough? What is my goal that says this will mean I'm good enough?
Right.
And then we realize we're chasing the invisible rabbit,
Yeah, I mean, because the truth is, we're all good enough by just being here.
Yes.
By just being a child of God, we are good enough just to be here.
Well, and I tell clients too, just the fact that you questioned it and realized something needed to change made you one step better than you were yesterday.
Absolutely. 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 You had asked me about the retreats.
Yes.
So, as an extension of kind of what's covered in, Reiki or spiritual counseling, I've gotten so much out of community and these experiential experiences. Like when I've been to other spiritual conferences, when you can really be in a group that you really trust, share yourself, the power of the energy in a group to lift each other up is really, really quite amazing. And so it would be, there might be some yoga or some sort of mindful movement. There might be a sharing circle. There might be like a burning bowl or fire ritual to kind of like burn away the things that we're letting go, and then an intention setting experience. And it would definitely, in my vision, is in a very like nature filled place. I mean, when we're in nature, it's like we're in touch with life.
See, Pete, it's not so weird that I go to the woods and watch the turtles.
I never said it was.
That's my stress place. I go sit by the lake, and there's a tree that fell in this pond. It's kind of a pond, not really a lake.
I have never called you weird
And-
once.
Not in front of me.
Not behind you either.
A tree fell, and there's literally hundreds of turtles in the middle of a summer that just sunbathe. And there's something about sitting there and watching them that all of a sudden I realize all that chaos, it's not right here. They don't know about it. They're fine. Look at them just appreciating that and it puts you in a different kind of place because you get to zone out. And people don't understand how important it is really to zone out periodically and detach yourself from all of it. Why, another reason why waking up and instantly scrolling the news feed can be a problem, because sometimes you need to detach from all of that to face your reality. The majority of things we worry about are not real.
Right.
There are things we're worried about might happen. There are things that worry about that already did happen and how that still makes us mad. Well, that's about us, not what happened.
Yeah.
And all these social media battles and what have you, the first thing I tell people when they're overwhelmed with it is, well, pull yourself into your four walls. turn off the news.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to get in political conversation. Turn off the news. And stay in your four walls and realize, oh my gosh, in this moment, in my space, I'm fine. Those things aren't happening here for me.
And we can hear our inner guidance better that way too.
Absolutely.
In nature, in quiet. It's
Right.
just
Can you
like
hear
the
me better here
connection.
one-on-one? Or can you hear me better if we were at a concert and I was trying to have the same conversation?
not a
Too much
noise.
chaos. Right?
Yeah.
Oh, we've got the hand.
Yep, Shayna says the science behind what you ladies do is starting to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
Tesla and vibration, not weird, misunderstood.
Yes.
There.
Quantum physics.
Right.
Another piece of it, Shayna. Absolutely. Science is catching up. And actually, for my blog, for my website, that's an article I'm working on right now, is where science and spirituality meet, because we've been so conditioned by quote unquote science that everything has to be proven, but now we're finally proving it. And
Right.
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, they're the worlds, the ethers, the all of it. They're starting to say, well, this is real and this is really happening, and now we can see this. So technology is catching up.
Yeah.
To where now it can't be denied, so to speak.
Yeah.
A lot of things can't be denied.
People
And I
want to, though.
Oh yeah. Well, but you know what? And that's actually a natural state, because part of what's going on, again, we are not getting into politics. But part of when all of the craziness started last year, I was still living with my mom, because I'd gone back to my mom for a couple of years, and I was still living with her, and she lives in a 55 and older community. And I was watching the reactions, and I thought, people were like, oh my God, I can't believe they don't understand it. I'm like, well, back down. That doesn't mean they don't understand. But you're asking people to now look at something from a perspective that means everything they ever taught, learned, and knew is maybe not true. And that's a huge thing for somebody. So stop thinking that somebody in an instant can do this, because anybody who wants to believe that, I will challenge you on the thing you're not doing it with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
true.
But really, in a 55 and older community, you're looking at people who went through wars and and everything they believe in, and there's a possibility that parts of that is really not true. And so to take somebody's whole inner life and belief system and then say, well, in an instant, change it, stop. Let people process. Let people see for themselves what they choose or what they see. We're getting the hand.
Getting a hand only to actually for
you're
you,
nicer
Lisa.
Than me, so they ask questions.
For you, Lisa, to actually just welcome two brand new countries that we've not had before, which is Indonesia and Romania. So Good morning or good evening or whatever time zone you're in over there, Indonesia and Romania.
Yay, we have a lot of countries now. I forget. How many countries are we up to now?
That puts us, I think, 249. So 249
all over the world right now.
Pretty cool.
But yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to say
you and welcome.
that's kind of cool. You got two new countries. So
yay.
So
welcome. We're always grateful. The more, the merrier. Spread the word, especially on stuff like this. But see, people talk because it's you, Denise. You're nicer than me.
Well, so far.
I could influence her. I could change her.
Lisa's a bad influence. We've known each other since 6th grade.
Well, here's a funny story actually on that just to I was just in Colorado, as you know, for training. And my new boss is fabulous. And luckily she has my sense of humor. So this works out well. But I work remotely now. But while I was there in Colorado, there's a young girl who does what I do. And she said, I'm going to have her come in and work with you in person. And I said, okay, that's fine. But why? Like what? She goes, she's really shy. And I think that you'd be good for her to maybe help break her out of her shell a little bit, because she's so shy. She's like 19. And I said, okay, that's fine. And after like the third day, she's WTF, this and that. She goes, you broke her. We just wanted you to crack her shell. You have broken her. And now she's loud and obnoxious. I said, I'm so sorry, but I'm kind of not. She's really funny.
Right. It sounds like she's being herself, you know?
So yes, just saying I can be an influence, but it's not always great. My boss is just shaking her head like, you totally broke her. You just broke her.
That's adorable.
Sorry. You want me to come back again?
She sounds fun.
Anybody else? So anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. But yeah, the people, and I will tell you this, that somebody said, why would you have somebody like Denise on the show? And it doesn't mean you personally. It's because you do something similar to what I do in a way. And I said, first off, I don't believe that one person solves the world.
Mhm.
Secondly, Denise and I are very different personalities, and we have very different types of people
Mhm.
that will come to us because we're very different personalities. And thirdly, to think like that is ego and fear, because I don't believe that. I do believe in life charts, and the life chart thing for me, but I don't believe that, spirit's up there going, well, she must think Denise needs everybody, so we're going to quit her practice.
Yeah.
That's just not how it works. I actually believe the opposite. It's more like, okay, now there's a rapport and now there's this. And you know what? I might get a client that my energy and theirs just don't mesh.
Right.
And I might go, you know what? But I have somebody that would be good for you.
Yeah.
You might get a client that's a lot rougher around the edges than you're used to, or that then it's going to do it. And you might go, you know what? But I know somebody else you can talk to. I tend to draw in the rough around the edges people, or the people who need a little loving push, and that's just because my personality is loud and it's dominant, and that's me. You're softer, and I do tease that you're nicer than me, and in a lot of ways it's probably true, but you have that's going to be your aspect of people, and I'm going to get my aspect of people, and that whole thing in the spiritual community to me is what has gone awry.
Yes.
Is that it's become a competition, and they backstab each other, and they kind of do exactly what they claim they should not do. And I watch, because I love the comments like, karma's going to get you. I hope karma gets you. And I'm like, oh, just saying that is wishing ill intent on another person. And do you get what you teach? Like, do you understand what you're trying to do and teach? No, you shouldn't be like that. But the ego mongering right now amongst this so-called love and light community, and I do say so-called, I believe it's gone awry, and it's kind of a good thing gone bad, which sadly, that's what the U.S. tends to do. Take a good thing and kind of ruin it.
We're having a lot of breakdown of structures and systems right now. I mean, because it's a lot of it's broken and it needs to be rebuilt. But I believe like it kind of goes back to like the tenet of unearthing false beliefs.
Right.
Like it would be a false belief for you to think that having me on the show would take business away from you, and vice versa. Like you and I have talked about collaboration because we have different skills.
Right. And there's different types of people who need different types of things.
Yeah. And like when this like false belief thing, it comes into your finance, you know what I mean? Like if you're holding on so tight and you're hoarding, that sends the universe a message saying, I'm afraid I'm going to lose everything.
Right.
You want to send them the universe a message that says, I'm very secure and I want to help people. And I just trust that it'll work out for me.
And people need to not be so afraid of admitting when they don't know how to do that. Because I talked about it a little bit on the air, and at some point I'll get in bigger detail. But about 2 months ago, I had it. I felt so stuck. And I had it. And I went and I sat in the woods and I said, okay, God, here's the deal. Either bring me home to my husband and son. My girls will miss me, but I raised them and they're good women. Bring me home to my husband and son, or show me how. But whatever this is, wherever I'm stuck, it's going to stop. Either I'm coming home or you're showing me how. And they started showing me how.
In a big way.
Yeah, like visions. And I went through like 6 weeks of every day off 6 and 8 hours sitting in there, bringing it up. Some was crying, some was peaceful. And I talked about this the year before, but it's an interesting because people's perspectives, because in the beginning, my mentor for mediumship, she said to me, why are you doing this to yourself and not choosing peace? And I said, oh, that's interesting, because I totally think I'm choosing peace. Like I'm choosing to live a life that's peaceful by letting this go. And she said, no, I choose peace every morning. And Pete and I have had this conversation and why it's different. But I said, but if you have to tell yourself that every morning, you're not peaceful.
You also have to let it flow.
Right.
Because stuff gets bottled and...
Right. So you can't let it flow, only the stuff you feel like looking at, because the stuff you feel like looking at isn't the problem. You know what I mean?
Right. And I went through a breakup in February.
Right.
And I feel like it was the first time that I really let the grief flow of the loss of the relationship. But I also got through it quicker because I let the strong feelings and be with it. And and thankfully I had the time, and, with COVID, I'm home. Right. So I was crying in my bed.
So I can be irrational and nobody can see me. We're good.
Exactly. So yeah,
But yeah,
then,
let it out, face it,
and I can see it more clearly, like, oh, now I see why that happened and why I'm not in that relationship anymore.
Right.
You know?
And so sometimes learning what we don't want and what we do want, part of it is also saying, but what role did I play in this?
Yeah.
And so if you see things, a role that you played in something, whether it be a relationship or a job or whatever it is in our life, as parenting, whatever, this is where I can see I really kind of made some mistakes. I can see where I misjudged that. You can't live then in that, because, and the truth is in every moment we do the best we can with what we have.
Yeah.
So you can go, but you know what? Now I've learned that. To just see it isn't enough, but you have to learn it and go, okay, you know what? I can see in the future where I won't apply that again.
Yeah.
And then to see what you did like is to go, you know what? I did like this. I'm going to look for this again. This worked for me.
Yeah.
But unless you're willing to look at the balance of both, you don't get that moving forward. You know, you don't change it. That's why people stay in a repeated cycle, because they only want to look at the easy part. Right. And then, you know, some people get misconceived. Well, Lisa, that means you want us to torment ourselves. I will tell you, those weeks were flipping hard.
Yeah.
It was very hard. And it was a lot of self-reality. But it was 5 weekends of just me, the woods, and whatever you want to call what it is that we're working with. And 5 weeks so that I don't spend 30 years feeling how I felt for 50 years.
Yeah. It's like shedding
right.
some weight, some dead weight. It's just move a little freer.
And each time it happens, it becomes easier because you're getting less, you're getting less. And I don't even look back on it now and look at it as torment. Right. I'm not going to say it was easy, but I can't think of anything I've done in the recent past that was more satisfying and more forward movement, because as soon as I did those things, what happened was that in the final weekend, I still go periodically, but I don't need to like I did. And on the final weekend, I went, okay, I'm going to go do my thing. And I got there and I went, I don't have anything.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And it's not that there's nothing in there, but I was done with my stage, you know, and I went, I don't have anything. I'm going to go see my friends. Like, cause I hadn't talked to anybody, really done anything. I was just isolated other than working. That was it. And what a great, I'm sitting here purposefully trying to dig it up and I can't. And it was so exciting. And within a week, I found a new townhouse, got a new job, and was on my way to Colorado. Like it just went boom, 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 literally that quick. Yeah, to the point where I actually broke down in tears. And everybody's like, everything you asked for is happening. I'm like, I know, and I didn't expect it. And so there's even a shock in the good, because I loved it when people would look at me and they go, what are you freaking out about? Everything that's happening is good and positive, and it's everything you asked for. I'm like, right, but we can see it, we can think about it, we can wish for it. But when it gets thrown at you, it can be like, oh.
And there's unknown in the new, right?
Yes.
I can certainly relate.
Unknown is, Well, why, Denise? Do you have some control issues? Because I might have control issues that cause me that problem. Do you have any control issues that you don't like the unknown?
I'm freaking out about where to choose to live. Like, what if I pick the wrong place? And then
what if?
And
what
then
if
the other side is like, well, you'll be there for a year and you'll make the best of it.
Well, you know what? And in truth, Denise, you wouldn't even have to stay there for a year. You can actually break a contract without going to prison.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And
that's the what ifs that we get into our head.
I have to also trust that I'm making the right decisions, because you make a decision, you go with it.
Because how many times did we think we were making the right decision because we thought about it so much, and then it kicked us in the face.
Yeah.
And we realized, well, you know what, but my gut did kind of, if you look back and you're honest, my gut did kind of tell me I should do that, but it seemed too risky.
Yeah.
Our gut will guide us.
Yeah.
You know, it's our head and our ego and our control issues that cause us to, Pete's giving us the hand. People like to talk when you're in here.
And this is from Shayna again. Shayna says, I was raised to see the gift of taking responsibility. She said, that's where the power and wisdom come from. I understand more of this now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. Accountability, which so many fear, is freeing, you know, in every aspect. And that's part of what I learned that makes me be so vocal about everything. Like, even when I got my hair, because my hair is fake. And even when I got it, people were like, why are you telling everybody? I'm like, do you know how many women with thinning hair might feel like, oh, it's maybe not that big of a deal?
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like, accountability, throw it out there. What's the truth? Everybody having to hide, things is what's causing so much
And I
distress.
gotta tell you, at this point, every time you say, I forget that because it's just you. Now,
I told you one day when I don't have
not,
stuff to do afterwards, I'll take it off on the show to show people what it is.
Yeah, but I mean, there's no need.
There might be some need for some woman that doesn't understand how it works.
Okay.
And
I'll acquiesce to that. I'm just saying.
There might be some woman that wants to know, what does she mean her hair is fake? Because it's just the top of it.
It's okay. Whatever. I'm just saying it's fine. It looks good.
But being vocal and just going, why are you afraid? Because I did it at the school. Because people you knew me in the 6th grade. I really had that hair that I had before for 40 years. So it was very traumatizing to change it. And when I went to work and they're like, oh my God, the bangs and it's flat here. I'm still having trauma about that. I'm getting a new one because I need a little higher there, close to God. Gotta get the poof. And I'm like, oh, it's fake. What? Like, I was getting so thin on top. It bothered me. And they all kind of looked at me like I was crazy for a minute. But 3 different women came up and whispered in my ear in my classroom, where did you get that and how does it work?
Yeah.
Huh?
When you allow yourself to be vulnerable in front of other people, it gives them permission to. You know
what I discovered? I grew up in a family situation that does not see the world like I do. My mom and my daughters are good with it. One of my daughters just recently, last few years, stopped making the sign of the cross at me, but the other one is a mini me, and my mom has always believed in what I do, but the rest of the family did not. And I really battled to fit in, to get approval to all those things. And what I realized was I was stressing so much to do these things, and I still wasn't getting it. They still thought I was insane, and I was miserable. So I thought, well, I'll be happy and they'll still think I'm insane, or I'll be miserable and they'll still think I'm insane. I'm going to go with the I'm going to be happy and insane kind of thing and see what happens. Mm-hmm. And I found that once I did that and I just threw it out there, that's why I'm on the air. Like, why do you throw your skeletons on the table? Because maybe somebody else's are similar and they're scared. Yeah. Like, whatever. People come and I've even had clients, I'll go, well, because I'm not a psychologist. I don't have a psychology degree. What did your therapist say about that? Some of my clients are seeing a therapist otherwise too. Mm-hmm. And they're, oh my God, I wouldn't tell them that. I'm like, well, why wouldn't you? Why do you go? I would be judged. Why are you telling me? Well, because you tell yours. It's really just that feeling of, because I'm free in here to tell you whatever, and you're going to laugh with me or cry with me or whatever it is you're going to do. And it is that freedom that needs to be offered. And, you're going to be able to offer them. I'm not going to share your dirty laundry on the air, of course, but you've had enough life experiences and challenges and self-reflection, and you took accountability for your role. Mm-hmm. And it's that self-reflection that empowers you. Yeah. And everybody fears it so much. Like, oh my God, but what if people knew? Well, what the hell if they did?
Right. It's almost like let's get it out there and have it done with, and then you're not worrying about it.
And nobody can use it as a weapon anymore.
Yeah.
Especially ourselves, against ourselves.
Right.
But it's not a weapon if everybody knows.
And I've heard you say something similar. Taking accountability is not the same as beating yourself up.
Right.
I've heard you say that, and it's so true. And it's human nature to beat ourselves up, but I think it's important to, when you're taking accountability, to also be gentle and kind with yourself. And look, we're human. We make mistakes. We do things we wish we had done differently. And that's the same experience for everybody.
I have been perfection.
I've heard your stories, Lisa.
I know the truth. I know the truth. And it is true. And taking accountability is just really, to me, it's free. It's free in the darkness. I mean, it's just saying, you know what? I've got this dark secret that I carry around, and it's horrible and I hate it. And I'm just going to swing the door open and say, here it is, world. And it really just becomes no longer a weapon. Somebody recently who's very, very close to me said to me, has come to their own realizations, not from my nagging anymore. And it's funny. This is interesting. I'm going to own it. They might have woke up and listened. They came to their own realizations when I quit nagging them and went and did their own research and started looking into things, because now they learned it from themselves, not me saying, just do, which is what we tend to do, not we like as counselors, but we in our privately, if you just, and they said to me, what do I do next? Now that I see this, what do you see as the problem? Now, see, it's different now when I'm telling them, because they're asking. And I said, Your guilt is your strongest emotion, and it is controlling your life.
Mm-hmm.
You pull up your truth, even the shit you don't like,
Mm-hmm.
and look at it, and guess what? And you put it out there, and you tell me or somebody else or whatever it is you need to tell yourself. Write a letter, tell whatever you choose to do, because once you pull up the darkness, it's no longer there. It's got light.
Right.
What happens if this room is dark and we flip on a switch? It's no longer darkness. We can see what's around us. We may not like some of it. We might like some of it, but we know what's there.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, that's your next step. I said, because in your life, it has overrun everything. Your love, your happiness, your everything, your guilt has just smothered it. And that's the next step on. But I kind of bring that up because I'm eating crow on the air, but it is true that when I stopped saying, just listen, and really went within myself and went, what would you do if somebody told you just listen? Because the truth is, and my husband used to joke about it, when people say she's so stubborn, how do you get her to do something? He's like, tell her she can't. Because then even if she didn't want to, she's going to do it just because you told her she can't.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, how would it? And I did. I stopped
Mm-hmm.
as part of the woods and stepped back and went, what would you do if somebody was approaching you who was repeating a cycle and they were approaching you the way you were approaching it? And I went, oh, I would block off everything and repeat it just because they were telling me not to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stepped back and went, oh, I don't like how that looks. My intentions were good.
Yeah.
My intentions were good. And in the long run, the majority of them, what I was seeing was right.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought, oh, it's your approach, Lisa. You are causing them to continue this partially because you're approaching it in a way that says,
the wall.
yeah. So I went, okay, step back.
Mm-hmm.
Step back and just allow it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really interesting because over a few weeks, by the way, I looked up this, and by the way, I read this, and you know what I didn't realize was this, and hey, this happened. And it was like, oh, because you moved the curtain of Lisa
Mm-hmm.
and allowed the world to be seen
Mm-hmm.
as it is from your eyes versus all you see is me going, stop it.
Yeah.
So that's a really important thing for all counselors, spiritual people, whatever, to remember. We may know certain things and we may have experienced certain things, but people can only meet it when they're ready to meet it.
Mm-hmm.
And if our egos become involved to where we feel, because you've seen this in the spiritual community, the savior complex
Mm-hmm.
and the I am God complex and I am the special one complex, you're actually, in my opinion, causing harm and hindrance to somebody, not offering anything. Because people would do it. I love it when people say, because I'm a Reiki master, so I know the Reiki thing, but I don't practice it, so to speak. It's not that I don't believe in it. It's just, to me, it's a part of what I do anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it when people say, well, I do Reiki and I did this. Like, you didn't do squat, really.
It's the energy.
You're
flowing.
kind of a
It's the God spirit
conduit. You
flowing
learned
through.
how to be a conduit to
Yeah.
help that person, but
Yeah.
you really didn't do that. You learned how to process this. You learned.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you did do it on the aspect that you offered yourself, but you're not God. I'm just letting you know. Like, and that mentality, and that hinders people off of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost become a weird used car salesman kind of a thing for some people that I hear talk about it. And it's like, oh, see, that would turn me off just because you're acting like you're some superior being. I get kicked off of a radio show once as a guest. Well, I was a listener guest. Like,
What
I was
happened?
chatting. This woman was talking about how she hated to do readings because when God would tell her that somebody was going to die and she wasn't allowed to tell them. And so, I had a question. I said, then why did you need to know? There was a chat room.
Mm-hmm.
Well, God felt I should know because I was reading the person, but I wasn't supposed to tell them. Did you know the person? No, they were just a client that came in to get rid of them. Then why do you need to know? I'm still confused. Why do you need to? And what she was doing was making herself seem like this superior being that God has chosen that they need to know. And I thought, that is the biggest hunk of crap I've ever heard in my whole life. You are just feeding the used cars. That's what turned me off of it. And I stepped away from all the spiritual aspects of it for a while because I went, okay, this is not my gig.
Yeah.
But then when it didn't go away in my life, I went, okay, Lisa, you've never been bossed around before. Go back into the crowd and elbow your way through to your spot, kind of thing. So Denise is far from ego-minded. I will tell you that, and that's it needs to be brought up, because when people hear spiritual or spiritual
Mhm.
counseling, which is fine, but it's a common term now, they need to understand there's different types of people who do different types of things,
Mhm.
and just because they say they can or do doesn't mean that they actually will help you. Sometimes even those of us who think that we're above it let our egos get in the way,
Yeah.
because we can see something, and we so much the truth it comes from, we don't want someone else to suffer something we've already suffered, so we're trying to like go, no, you really don't want to do this.
Mhm.
And in that, sometimes we can hinder somebody's growth, because that's what they needed to learn.
Yeah.
Because and if we step back, we go, why do we know that's what they needed to learn? Well, because that's what taught us. So why are we taking that away from them? Let's just help them through it.
Yeah.
Help them, Pete's giving us the hand.
Well, this is actually my question. So, Denise, is that something similar to Lisa that you do? Are you also something of
Medium psychic.
a medium psychic? Does that work alongside with the other things that you do, or is that part of how all of that works for you?
I would say yes, but in a different way. I don't get as many or as strong messages as Lisa gets. I would say when I'm in a session, I'm listening for that still small voice that is guiding me. I don't know. I'm assuming it's spirit. I don't know who it is or where it's coming from, but I'll give you an example. So there have been times when I've been in a session, and I'm telling on myself here, and I'll have a mini panic where I'm in a session with a client, and I'll be like, what if I don't know the way to go with this client? Like, what if I don't know the next step to take? And then I remind myself that allowing and that trusting, and I say to myself, don't worry, it'll come. And as soon as I do that let go, something comes through that gives me the next course of action.
Right.
And every time, I've never been
let down
let
by
down.
it, right?
Wow, that's really cool. That's
Yeah.
very interesting. So, and we're right at 4
4
minutes. So,
Denise, why don't we spend this next 4 minutes, for anybody who checked in late, because
Mhm.
sometimes they don't always repeat your contact information,
Mhm.
your kind of basis. In other words, let people know who you are and how to reach you. They're all sick of me. They all know who I am. So you do your thing and
Okay.
spread your word for anybody who might have come in after the beginning of the show.
Okay. Yeah. So my practice is called Live Life Spiritual Direction. I will have a website by next month, livelifespiritual.com. In the meantime, feel free to send me an email at denisemaple@gmail. I'm Live Life Spiritual Direction at Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, maybe Instagram. There's something, all of those versions. I'm forgetting what they are. But if you want to book a session until my website is ready, and it will always be there on the Ajata Casa social app, I'm a certified practitioner and can schedule sessions through that for Reiki and spiritual.
And I
counseling.
think you need to can you spell that out, because I have never heard of it before. So
Yeah.
for anybody who's never heard of it,
I'm going to write it down while I say it to make sure I get it. It's Ajata Casa. So it's AJA, T as in Tom, A, K as in kite, A, S as in Sam, A. Ajata Casa.
okay.
And I don't remember what
And that's
it
an
means.
app, correct?
It's an app. It's a social media app on Google Play and Apple.
Okay, perfect. So they can book a session with you. Do you want to put out what you charge for a session, or how long they should expect it to take, or how many sessions usually you book, or anything else you want to share with them that'll allow them to feel comfortable knowing that they're calling and what they're calling for?
Yeah, absolutely. So I offer hour and a half sessions for spiritual counseling. Reiki takes about 45 minutes. That's $75. And spiritual counseling, $100 for an hour session.
Okay. So just so that people are aware of that, I thank you for coming on today. I am hoping that Denise decides to do her own show, because I think she'd be. And look at her, Lisa. Stop! She's got her foot tapping. Lisa, wait till the air's off, Lisa. She would do fabulously. She has a lot to say. For those of you who are looking for this, she truly has a lot to say. Her heart is in it. Her ego is not.
And I'll say everyone has an ego. It's not like I'm
Oh, no,
claiming
'cause
not to have an ego.
that-
But
oh,
I'm more aware of it than I have
If
been.
we only had more time to get into the ego conversation where people say, no, I don't live in ego anymore. Just the fact that you think that proves you do. Stop that. We could do a whole nother show on ego.
Right.
We could do a whole nother show on ego. Did you just give me the finger?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Now you get half a finger.
Okay, so 30 seconds is what that means. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for welcoming Denise. Anybody who'd like to contact her, please feel free to do that. If for some reason you lose the links, whatever information, you can get it through me. I can give you her information, or you can email 216thenet.com and we can certainly send you the contact information for Denise. Thank you all for welcoming her. Thank you again for coming. You're welcome to come back anytime
Thank you for
like.
having me.
As your venture grows, feel free to, say, hey, hey, I got a Sunday free. I want to come over, and we'll do it again. You're always welcome here.
Thank you. It's fun.
It is totally fun. And Pete's fun. And Pete's the Sunday producer, so Pete's fun. Kent, on the other hand, will go somewhere else with that one, but